Welcome back to Afternoon Live. You may have heard the terms codependent and perfectionist, but what does it mean to be both? And how do those traits affect how you raise your kids? We'll find out now as we welcome the author of Raising Empowered Children, The Codependent Perfectionist Guide to Parenting, Alana Carvalho. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So codependent, I think, is a buzzword we hear often. Can you explain more about what exactly that means?
Sure, absolutely. So it's a pretty big topic and pretty complex. So an easy way to think about it is when you're basing your own well-being on somebody else's well-being. So the idea is if they're not okay, then you're not okay.
That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of us can feel that way at times, especially with close loved ones and family members. So how does that connect or overlap with perfectionism?
So when we're in our perfectionism, it's this idea that we're holding ourselves to these really high and unrealistic standards. And a lot of times codependency and perfectionism happen to live kind of together in a sense, and we can hold ourselves to unrealistic standards in our relationships as well.
So how do you kind of take that magnifying glass to your own life and recognize some of those tendencies in yourself?
So if you find that you're often doing things that you actually don't want to do, or you're saying yes when you mean no, or prioritizing other people's needs, it's likely that you're dealing with some codependency issues. And it could be something as minor as, seeing your child struggle in some way and trying to get in front of it, and so that they're not struggling, right? Without letting them kind of handle it themselves. So it could be something as small as that. And it can also be something as big as not allowing somebody to experience the consequences of their addiction, for example, like trying to make them not have to feel what it feels like when you're struggling with alcoholism or a severe mental health issue. So that can come up as well in codependency. So it really has such a wide range of ways it shows up.
Yeah, and specific to parenting, like you mentioned, kind of wanting to shield our kids sometime from feeling pain or consequences of their actions, that doesn't really help them in the long run as they grow into adults.
Absolutely not. That's a lot of what I talk about in my book, because when we don't allow our children to struggle and work hard or deal with their emotions, a lot of times they don't build the resiliency that they need actually in their adulthood, and they don't learn how to be with their emotions and allow that to be okay. They think that they need to kind of get rid of everything and make everything, happy or okay enough, rather than learning how to deal with difficulty, which is a natural part of life.
For sure. So let's say you recognize some of these traits in yourself. What are some steps forward? What can we do about it?
So once you start to recognize your codependency, that's really one of the most important steps, is watching yourself, right? Really like monitoring how you are in relationships, seeing where maybe you cut in where you don't need to, or you do something for your child that you actually don't need to. And then you want to kind of start to maybe speak to it, because a lot of times in codependency, we're not great at communicating our needs to other people, or what we're doing, or how we can how we're making changes in relationships. So one of the important things to do is actually to start allowing other people to know that you're going to be changing in some way. So sharing with them, I see that you're struggling with that. I think it's really important that you move through this, and I think you have the skills to do it. So helping other people know that they can get through something without the help that you normally give to them.
Yeah, and what about if you kind of think maybe you have a codependent relationship with another adult in your life, maybe not necessarily your child, but even
Sure.
kind of exhibiting those patterns to your kids, that might be kind of detrimental for them to see that learned behavior as well?
Absolutely. That's one of the ways many of us begin to have codependent characteristics, is that we see our parental relationships and we notice that one parent is really willing to put themselves last and take care of other people instead. And then we begin to pick up on those patterns as well and start to live in a similar way.
Yeah, it's tough being a parent, but we're always learning, always finding new tools to move forward. And I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have more on the book and information on our website at katu.com. And we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.